Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 15 Pro Max and see how this particular iPhone holds up in 2025. Now, number one, this phone, as you probably would have guessed it, is still completely worth buying. I think it's a very, very good phone, but it is one of those devices that is one generation old. It's a little bit older now. We have the next successor, and now we have some other Samsung phones and stuff that are looking also very good. So let's go and see how this phone somewhat kind of compares against those other devices. Now, if you want to pick up this phone or some other phones I would recommend buying this year, links will be down in the description below. You can get them from there, and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of the iPhone 15 Pro Max, this phone is basically giving you a 6.7-inch LTPO Super Retina XDR OLED display. Now, this is actually a pretty decent type of display for the most part, right? It's a very good display. It's massive, but it is a 2000 nits of brightness display. So it's not the brightest panel. You know, the Samsungs are giving us way better displays nowadays with I think higher brightness. But this thing is still not bad for a 2023 phone. You're still getting ProMotion on it, 120 Hz. Very thin bezels around it, like very, very thin bezels. But you are getting that dynamic island. Now, I don't really think the dynamic island is like that big of a deal, but it would have been kind of nice to, kind of get a little bit of a smaller amount of bezel on it, to be completely honest. But I don't really think it's like the biggest deal in the world either. But just keep in mind, that is just one of those things to kind of keep in mind at the end of the day. So personally for me, that's kind of one of those things that I kind of think about. On the bottom and on the sides, you're getting pretty much completely flat sides all throughout this phone, which is really cool. You're also getting USB Type-C ports on the bottom, which that was always such a nice thing to basically have. Being able to go through and get USB Type-C is so sick. And this was basically the first iPhone to basically bring that type of capability, which that in and of itself was a really cool thing to basically have. Now, on top of that, you're basically able to go through and get this frosted glass back on the back side of this phone, which looks and feels so good. I love having this type of frosted glass back, and it performs so well when you're going to go and kind of mess around with it. You're also getting this triple camera setup on the back side as well, which is still very nice. You're getting your LiDAR sensor, you're getting MagSafe capability. You're still maintaining a lot of really nice, things about this particular device that still make it hold up very, very well. And the fact that it's been out for a little bit, and now that we have the 16 Pro Max, we can kind of see that this phone does still kind of hold up fairly well when it does kind of compare against something like an iPhone 16 Pro Max. So I would say this phone still feels very expensive and it still looks good, but there are a few things that this major flagship from 2023 still kind of miss out on that a lot of phones have nowadays. Number one, this phone doesn't have like a super bright panel. A lot of phones nowadays are giving us like more than 2000 nits of brightness, 3000 nits of brightness is kind of common nowadays with a lot of major, more than $1,000 phones. So that was something that was kind of surprising to me. Unfortunately, this phone doesn't have it. On top of that, this phone doesn't have anything like any reverse wireless charging. This phone does have reverse wire charging, but no reverse wireless charging, which I felt like was kind of weird. I feel like these phones should have it now. I know the 16 Pro Max doesn't have it either, but when I look at the competition, a lot of those phones have that type of capability. Unfortunately, this phone does not have it. So I'm still kind of salty about that. But when it comes down to a price tag standpoint, the major benefit of buying some of these older flagships is that they've gone down in value a ton. So this phone, which used to cost over $1,000, doesn't really cost that much anymore. Well, it costs much less. This phone, as of this point, basically will cost you around, $665 on Amazon. Now, that price is probably only going to go down from this point. So that is in and of itself going to be another very big thing to keep in mind. So when I'm taking a look at this type of device, that is going to be something that's going to be really cool. Being able to go through and buy a phone like this that doesn't really cost like $1,000 plus. So that right there is another huge asset going on for this type of device too. Now on top of that, when it comes down to the cameras, this device is giving you that triple camera setup on the backside. So a 48 megapixel wide, 12 megapixel periscope telephoto lens, then a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera. Now the benefit of buying something like this type of phone is that you are still going to be able to go through and get a very solid type of layout and a pretty solid type of camera when it comes down to it. So this type of device, for the most part, would still probably hold up fairly well when it does come down to the capability behind this type of device, right? I still feel like this device does a pretty good job at a majority of things you throw at it from a camera standpoint, and having 4K at 60 on the front and the back is still very cool. Now, I do have to compare this against some of the competition. this phone is basically missing out on all the 8K capability that we have on a lot of other devices. A lot of phones nowadays are giving you much higher quality cameras, so that might be one of those other things to keep in mind there too. But it's just one of those things you're just going to have to think about when you're going through and getting this type of device. But I will still say, for the most part, this is still one of those devices that still has a really good camera, and it definitely gets a thumbs up for me when it comes down to it that side too. So from that side as well, that kind of covers it up there. Now when it comes down to the software longevity, this is also one of those things you're going to have to keep in mind here. This device is still supported with software, and it's still going to be supported with software for many, many years now. So that right there is a very, very important thing to keep in mind here, because you're going to be able to go through and pick up this type of device, and it's going to perform fairly well for many, many generations, right? This thing for so many years now, it's going to be lasting for a long period of time, and that is a really big benefit of being able to go through and buy a phone like this. Software longevity is no joke. I love being able to buy a phone that's going to be supported with software, and this thing is going to be giving you many years of software updates when it comes down to it. So that right there is a pretty big benefit, I would say, in my personal opinion. But when it does kind of come down to some other areas of this type of device, right? Like when you're looking at this type of device, another big benefit is basically the battery. This battery size, it's a 4,441 milliamp hour battery. That is a massive size battery inside of this type of device. And that right there, I mean, that is a really nice thing going on for this type of device when it comes down to it. And I do think if you are going to go through once again and pick up one of these types of devices, it's going to do a pretty good job at a majority of things you throw at it. And like I said before, I think that is kind of a nice thing going on for this type of device when it comes down to it as well. So kind of think about it from that side. I think these types of devices are really, really good when it comes down to it. And from that side too, definitely the battery life is killer. On top of that, when it comes down to its chipset and its performance, this device is still going to be going through and giving you, it's still going to be giving you a lot of capability here. So number one, it's still going to be going through and maintaining a really good, performing level. This thing is going to be really good when it comes down to a majority of applications you throw at it, games you throw at it, like everything across the board is going to be really nice within this type of device. On top of that, when it comes down to some other areas of this phone too, you have to remember that the build quality, mixed in with the ProMotion display and everything like that, it's going to make this phone still feel like a major flagship when it comes down to it as well. So that right there, that is a pretty big thing to kind of keep in mind there when it comes down to it. On top of that, when it comes down to, this phone still having Apple Intelligence, this phone still has it. That in and of itself is another really nice thing. So I definitely will tell you at the end of the day from that side, this phone's performance is still very good. But even when you go through and you kind of mix it in with some other stuff, right? When you think about this phone as a major flagship now, it still holds up very, very well. Like I still think this device holds up very well when it comes down to all those areas that I kind of mentioned. And I think that is kind of a nice thing to kind of keep in mind here, that you're able to go through, pick up a device like this, and still feel like you're getting a very expensive, like very good phone for the most part. And it doesn't really feel like it's like a super off-place device or it's like not worth it or anything like that. I think this device still holds up very well, and this would easily still be one of those types of devices I would recommend people to buy. So from that side too, that kind of covers it up there for the most part. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.